way, I don't like how synthetics is like the buzzword in Star Trek now. That's never been used ever
Right.
in the history of Star Trek. And now they act like it's, synthetics, yeah. Well, aren't holograms synthetic life forms? Right? What are they banned? Right? I mean, there's a big... I have to think at some point, it's a brief aside, I have to think at some point on this show, they'll address the difference between holograms and androids, because it's not like they don't talk about holograms. Holograms are everywhere. Like, holograms are working at Starfleet. Holograms are running the ship. Like, it's someone at some point going to be like, excuse me, I have a question. How come we trust these holograms, but we don't trust these androids? Because you think holograms could be more easily hacked than androids, who are kind of autonomous closed systems of technology. Mm-hmm. And holograms are part of like a neural, a neural net, listen, it's like Android type, like a World Wide Web, or like they're connected to what the 24th century equivalent of the internet would be, I would assume. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because they're interactive and they have databases. Like, though, I would trust an android way more than a hologram. So that's just my opinion. And I hope and I would think they're setting it up this way to address that. So that's an aside. But anyway, no, I have no answers to any of your questions because the show didn't seem interested in answering them either. And like, yeah, because I was like, I was confused. Like, is he dating this woman now? Because they seem like to have a close relationship there. I don't know. Like, Bruce Maddox is completely just out of context thrown in there. By the way, they recast the actor. Brian Brophy was the original actor from Measure of a Man. Not an A-lister. Right? He's not Ricardo Montalban as Khan. I understand. But the point is, the guy, I mean, and he's not that active an actor anymore, but he's a drama professor at Caltech, and he has been for several years. So he's still like involved in the craft. I don't know if they didn't call him. They did. Maybe he wasn't interested. I don't know. I would like to know though, because when you have all these characters who are returning, some of them are the same actors, some of them aren't. It's kind of a disconnect.
Yeah.
Like, I think, why is Hugh in this? Why we got Jonathan Del Arco back? Great. He looks nothing like Hugh. He's unrecognizable. That could have been anyone. But if you're gonna if your entire storyline for this season revolves around this guest star character from season 2 of TNG, I don't know. Maybe try to get that guy back, or at least discuss it beforehand, or have him. I thought perhaps if they weren't going to get the actor back, he would just be dead already, right? And I think that's a cleaner way to do it, in my opinion. Especially since we got no answers from him anyway. Right? There was a dead
Only
end.
more questions. Yeah.
Right. So I don't want to go, I don't want to keep harping on the recasting thing. I'm just very confused by who they choose to bring back, what characters get the same actors, what characters don't. And I've been making this point as well. You remember in TNG, The Battle, right? Damon Bach, right? They bring that character back in season 7 on TNG, different actor. Huge disconnect. I'm like, if you can't get the actor back, just don't do the story or write around it. Like, it's very simple.
Yeah.
In my opinion. That's my stance on it, because it's a distraction. I hate recasting. I really do. So there you go.
Well, it was interesting when he was talking to Picard, and it seemed a very Maddox thing for him to say, when Picard was saying, well, why is Soji on the artifact? And he's like, because she needs to find the truth. The same reason why I put Daj on Earth, to find the truth. And because the Federation is involved somehow. And so then I'm like, okay, so Maddox literally built Daj and Soji to do his dirty work. And again, that just totally took me back to Measure of Man. Well, what if we had a data on every starship, to do the dirty work? That was Guinan's whole point, And here he is doing the exact same thing that we didn't want him to do in Measure of a Man. I was very surprised by that, but it totally fits his MO. And so I thought that was really nice for them to put that in.
Well, yes, and clearly the dark future that Guinan predicted in Measure of the Man came true, as we saw in Maps and Legends, the flashback. We have just an army of disposable people, right?
Yep.
So that all does tie together, and I guess Maddox created all those people. Like, again, we have to connect the dots ourselves. I'm sure there's a comic book or a novel. If it's not out there yet, there will be, I'm sure, to explain all this, which, again, is kind of annoying because I feel like everything should be on screen that's important. But yeah, so the character of Maddox, it follows. I agree, all the things that are happening make sense for him to have done. I just don't know why, Dodge and Soji, why are they so important? Who is their mom? Is that an AI? right?
Yeah. So their mom, if you remember when Daj called her mom, it was different than when Soji spoke to her mom.
Oh, was that a different actress?
I thought so.
Okay.
It looked completely different. And I'm like, that's not their mom. And that's why I was like, is mom? And so to hear that the mother was an embedded, and so I thought maybe that was their specific mother, even though they were twins. I don't know. More questions. But he talks about that his work, that they were perfect. They were perfectly imperfect, which I thought was a very nice way to describe them. But then gives credit, obviously, first to himself. And then he adds soon. And then he adds Agnes Jurati. And I was like, he was like, without your contributions. And I'm like, okay, so her contributions were 14 years ago. So then that blows my theory of why Maddox needed a loan from Bjayzl. So then those Soji and Daj were built before.
How old is Agnes?
Right?
Guess what were you, like 20? I mean, could be a child just, yeah, because, okay, I don't know. She's like, let's say she's 40.
Right.
So I guess she was a really smart grad student and figured some stuff out. That's fair, fine. But this is completely an aside. Measure of a man, right? Bruce Maddox, he is one of the people that, he's the only person on the board of Starfleet that objected Data's joining Starfleet as an officer, right? That was a big plot point, right?
Yes.
And Data, people forget this, but Data was found, I think, like 26 years before season 1 of TNG, 24 years, something like that. So, Bruce, how old is Bruce Maddox? Because
right.
He's like, I don't know, 40 in that episode. So again, we have these genius. Why is this 24-year-old, wonder kid on the board of who gets admitted to Starfleet, right? So that's just that's a TNG thing I've always thought about, because I think with Data, I mean, you know TNG. Like, I think, tell me if you agree with this. I think they should have had, instead of 26 years ago I was found, have been found 6 years ago on Omicron Theta, right? And he gets turned on, and then he joins Starfleet, and he's in there for 4 years. Ish, right? And then
I mean, he doesn't even need to be that long because he's an android. Like,
well, yeah, true, but
he could speed through.
That's true. He could take all the classes and so quickly. But let's just say he has to go through the proper, in his endeavor to become more human, he goes through the proper 4 years of school, and then he's a lieutenant somewhere for a couple years, and then he starts TNG as like a lieutenant. Like, he's an ensign and a lieutenant, and then Picard's like, oh, it's an interesting android. I want this guy on my ship. And then he's new. Because he seems like he knows way too little about like humanity and life if he's been around for 20 plus years, right? I mean, that's a continuity problem baked into TNG, but all these things about time and like how old are these people and when these things happen, that has me thinking about that as well. So I mean, I get like, they were like, well, Brent Spiner's in his 30s, but he's an like, it doesn't matter. Like, he's an android. Are you telling me no one ever talked to him? Like, there were no Geordies who befriended him in the last 20. Maybe they thought it was weird. Well, maybe they treated him like we see people treat the disposable people in Maps and Legends. But for 20 years, for him to be like, what is Snoop? Yeah. Like, you've never heard that word before? So anyway, in my head canon, I'll just chop that 2 off whatever they talk about how long Data was discovered ago, and it all makes sense to me. So anyway, I've been thinking about that, revisiting all this stuff for Picard. So anyway.
Yeah, and one of the things talking about this time and how it doesn't work is when Jurati is watching the program of her and Maddox, making cookies. Like, she doesn't look 14 years younger in that video. It looks like it happened, the other day.
I didn't think about it. Was that supposed to be 14 years ago?
Well, if Maddox has been missing for 14 years and gone into hiding, and she hasn't seen him and doesn't know where he is, then that means that she's been missing and not with him for 14 years. So that video couldn't have taken place.
Did they say it was, I guess they would have been, yeah, it was right after the synth they got shut down. We can't do any practical research.
Right.
Yeah, that would, I mean, I'll have to rewatch everything now to kind of clear this up, but I didn't even think about that.
The video, I was like, oh, so she knows where Maddox is, but then, I mean, maybe with her killing Maddox, I didn't even see that coming.
Well, I wouldn't have seen it coming had they not had Picard and Maddox and the way it was shot, right? Picard and Maddox are talking and in the background, she's in the foreground looking really concerned. I was like, oh, she's going to kill him. Now she's going to... That's when I thought, oh, now she's going to kill him. That would have been so much more effective had they just had a normal conversation, right? Picard and Maddox, and then she comes in, and they have him... He's like, oh, thank you so much for all your help. And you're like, oh, okay, they're going to reconnect. And then she kills him. You're like, oh, my God! But because they telegraphed it so strongly...
It's called foreshadowing. Obvious foreshadowing, mind you.
Yeah.
But yeah, her listening. And so if she's a spy, she's not a very good spy because she was listening so intently.
So are you glad that she ended up being a spy? Because I know there's a lot of talk about it was really convenient how she showed up at Picard's house with the gun.
No.
Like, oh, what happened here? I just chalked it up to more lazy contrived writing.
No, because on my last podcast with Patrick, I was in love with her and how how she does her lists and she's organized, and she was my favorite. And
well, she was kind of the Tilly of the show, is what they were kind of playing her up as, right?
Yeah, but it seemed like she had an important role to go with the synths and to try and figure it out. And now that she's this dark-handed spy, I don't know a spy for who or what. Yeah,
because you're like, how long has she been bad? Was it because when the Admiral with the sunglasses came and talked to her as
Commodore O.
Excuse me. Commodore O. Vulcan, Romulan, we don't know.
We don't know.
But I assume who knows, right? But right now my thinking is she was on the level up till that point. The Commodore told her some shady stuff, because I wish you knew what I knew, right? Is what she tells Maddox before she kills him. So whatever happened, that's when she turned, and then she went with the Jad Vaj to go to the vineyard, and she was waiting outside just to see how it all went down, I guess.
Oh.
And it's oh, okay, let me come in here, and with oh, it's a gun, and I'm going to play it up, and I'm helpless. But really, she was there with them to kind of see it through, because she was the contingency plan if they didn't finish the job, I guess. I mean, who knows? I assume this will be explained.
Yes.
But there's a lot that I assumed would be explained that won't. So we'll see. But that's my theory now about Jurati. So
yeah. Okay. I'm liking it and gonna see. Oh. Okay. Now the very underlying character development was for Raffi, and I really enjoyed this part. And then again, I went onto social media. I don't know why I do. And everyone's like, that acting was terrible and blah. And I really have to disagree. I felt like her going to her son Gabriel and saying what she said and what he said to her, you could feel the anger and resentment that he had for her. And you could feel how completely sorry she was for her actions. And then when he called her out on her crap and saying, oh, it was so powerful, lives were at stake. And he's like, yeah, our lives were at stake. You still believe that there's something going on with the synths, that there's a conspiracy. And she jumped in, and you could see that addict personality in her that just shone through. And I haven't had that much, thankfully, opportunity dealing with addicts like that. And even when they came into Free Cloud and they had those advertisements, and, they were advertising to her the snake flower,
snake
whatever.
Yeah.
And she, swiped it away, and she's been clean, but you can still see that addictive personality. And I thought that writing was very real, very heartfelt, and really adds to Raffi's story. What did you think of that little character story for her?
So I haven't been the biggest fan of Raffi, but this episode I was like, oh, okay. She is more than a one-dimensional character now. We're she's just, I'm going to just be angry at Picard in every scene and question everything he does. And that was her one role up till now. I like how they gave her some depth as a character. I think she did a great job acting wise. All her, like what you're saying, when you can see, you can see her kind of crazed personality come out. She's like, oh, well, it was Romulans, right?